Hi guys, it's the Forgetful Skull and let's chat about books. 2 books. So this week is Keester and Too Much and Not Enough. So, I'm going to do the first one. It would be Julie Garwood, Hot Shot. Now this book, I wasn't really sure what I was getting into because there was no, explanation of anything except this tiny, basically, one sentence that's a woman's dream for the future turns into a nightmare. The handsome FBI agent enlisted to protect her makes her vulnerable to more than she ever imagined. That's it. That's it. It's one sentence. All right. And I really loved this author's book last week, The Secret. It was 5 stars for me, still 5 stars. Adore it. This, I give it 1 star. Whew, I know, really, loved the last one, hated this one. Okay, so this took place in 2013. I mean, this was published in 2013. I assume that's the time period. I will say that this book did a good job of not giving you an exact date so that it wouldn't date itself. That's really good. Going into it, I wasn't that excited. It is an FM contemporary, supposed to be suspense. Because, I don't know, contemporary romances, I'm really picky about contemporary romances. I'm really, really picky about them. Didn't really realize that about myself until this channel, but here we are. Okay, this one is too much and not enough at the same time. So, we start off in the first chapter basically being told that the main guy, whose name I've forgotten, and cue the dog scratching at the carpet where he's not supposed to. What was his name? Finn, and he's a teenager, and he has 2 younger twin brothers who are also teenagers. 3 teenagers under one roof. Bedlam. Totally get that. So being told by their, I guess this is, I don't know, it doesn't really seem like the father's perspective either. So it's like a narrator's perspective, 3rd person perspective, being told that the 3 boys are gorgeous and smart and are not challenged at school and it's so athletic and they're so perfect, but they're troublemakers. But they're troublemakers in that they fight the bullies. They're not bullies themselves. Hold on. And Finn, the oldest in particular, is just such an overachiever. He whizzes through school 4.0 and he's so bored. He doesn't even have to open up a book. Oh my gosh. You know what I mean? Can you tell? I was really not a fan of this book. So he's a great swimmer and his dad's gonna sign them up for the local swim team that apparently, has a chance for the Olympics. We have not heard from the boys yet, from Finn yet, if the Olympics are even something he's considered. And the fact that he's so blasé about joining the team. And I'm like, man, people train for the Olympics since practically the moment they're born. And he's like, whatever, I guess it's something I could do in my off time. I was like, all right. So this is going on. Have no idea what kind of personality he has, except that he beats up on bullies. Okay. All right. That's pretty good. It's a pretty good start. This is the first chapter, pretty good start. He saves his neighbor's 4-year-old daughter, or 6, from drowning in their backdoor pool, and that is the main character whose name is the main female character whose name is Lucy. No, Lucy's the sister. Peyton. It is a bad sign when I can't remember the main characters' names because last week, The Secret, Judith and Ian. Still remember. I still love Judith. Judith's best friend, Frances Catherine. Still remember. I just finished this book. How do I not remember the freaking names? Okay, ooh, that's a bad sign. So that's, kind of their meet cute, but obviously there's no sparks because he's 15, she's 6 or something. There's 8 years apart from them. I'm not doing the math, but apparently, later on there's 8 years apart. Okay, fine. You set up that they are neighbors, and okay, so then I just looked it up. The main female that I totally remember her name because I just looked it up. Haha. We're in her POV and we get a huge kind of narration vomit about how, she went to school for English Lit and journalism, and then she fell in love with cooking, and then she went to France for 2 years to study cooking, and her dating life's a disaster because she keeps picking, I don't know why, she just picks all the weirdos. And then some examples of the weirdos, and I'm like, oh, that's not so bad. My dating history is way worse. So, okay, so I was like, okay, cool. Some nice foundation, although I did feel like this was being told to us, not being shown. I was like, okay, because honestly, I know people are like, show, don't tell, but in writing a book, you kind of have to tell a little bit, like a little bit. Like I think the secret of a good book is finding the balance between the two, so I'm like, okay, The Secret was really good about that, so give this a good shot. I was like, okay, let's do this. Still high on the Judith love, because I adore her, still one of my top females, period. So I'm like, okay. She is the middle sister, same. That's kind of it. She gets a job at this magazine. And I was like, okay, this culinary art magazine. And she's going to be a critic. Cool. That's a fun way to use her journalism and her chefing skills. Okay, I'm liking it. I'm digging it. All right. Then I was like, oh. Because she walks in and apparently she's just pure gorgeousness. Oh my God, she's so gorgeous. And everyone stares at her. And she has no idea why. Oh. And I'm like, really? Apparently Judith was gorgeous in The Secret. I'm going to keep comparing these two. Sorry, deal with it. It's just what's happening. But I can understand why she wouldn't think she's gorgeous, because in 1200s, it was very rare for anybody to have a mirror. She is a 21st century gal with social media, with the internet, with mirrors. She knows she's pretty. She might not think she's gorgeous, but she knows she's pretty. You know what I mean? Now, the only, I consider giving this 2 stars. Because the bad guy is so horrible. You know what I mean? And I guess the suspense in catching the bad guy was so good. Those things were really, really good. But then I thought to myself, this is a romance first, right? And I do not give a shit. I do not give a shit about the 2 romantic leads. So I'm like, okay, I gotta knock it down to 1 star, because that's the whole point of a romance novel. You root for them, I want to root for them. But okay, so she starts this job, and her boss, who's the bad guy, and is, oh, you love to hate him. It's not even love to hate him. You just hate him because he's a horrible sexual harasser. He's just horrible. He's making all these horrible advances. He's, unwanted touches, all these things. And when she's in her hotel room, he's drunk, banging on the door, threatens to SA her. You know what I mean? And she's terrified. And that's the only part, I felt any sort of way for her. And yes, I know, I'm dead inside for the most part. I get it. But I like to empathize with the characters. I like to care for them. So that part, I was like, oh girl, protect yourself, get out of there. I felt for her. I felt really bad for her. I wanted her out of that situation. And that is kind of where the only part I cared about what happens to her. And that's kind of where it started and ended. Not that she did anything wrong or anything. It was just, she didn't have a personality. And the main guy, whose name I totally remember, he didn't have a personality either. So, you know what I mean? And the only reason I didn't DNF it, because I wanted to read the bad guy's comeuppance and all the people working with him. I wanted to see them getting taken down, because she almost gets murdered a couple times, which those were really fun scenes to read. So the action this author can do, and I know she could do romance, because again, The Secret, I fucking loved it. So this, I'm like, you know what I mean? Maybe contemporary's not her thing. I'm gonna try some more historical with this writer, because maybe that's just where their skills are perfected. Anyway, so she and then all this. they meet up again at like the main guy's younger brother's wedding, and they meet up again, but she can't stay because she has a job. I was like, okay, fair enough. And I thought maybe her job will come into it a little bit more, but no, her rich ass uncle gives her and her sisters another opportunity later that is pretty much nowhere near what they studied for, but they're super excited about it. It was a weird kind of U-turn, you know what I mean? And I was like, oh, that's too bad, because I think there could have been a lot of cute scenes in the reception, you know, the brothers' reception. They could have had a cute little dance. We could have felt like they had a bit of a connection, but oh no, we're told they have a connection because we're told on her birthday, she always emails him a thank you for saving her life. We never hear that he responds back, not really. You know, she calls him hotshot and he hates it, and that's what we know. You know, that's how he recognized her, because she's so gorgeous. And then like, even like outside the church, she's surrounded by these men trying to chat her up. No idea. And he's all like, grr, you know what I mean? And I'm like, really? Because this is, you know, I mean, these are grown-ass men. These are grown-ass men in their 30s. They're not gonna, I would hope they're not gonna act like, you know, frat boys on spring break after like a 3-day bender. Like, it's like you expect a little decorum from, you know, Navy SEALs, because like the brother that's getting married, his twin brother's a Navy SEAL, because again, they're all so amazing. So you would think a little bit more decorum in a church, you know what I mean? But okay. So that was weird. And immediately he gets protective of her, and we're told because like she's the little girl he saved, you know. So I understood that, you know what I mean? I got that, you know what I mean? This video might be long because I have a lot to say about this freaking book and the second book. So, okay. There's bullet holes in her car, which we didn't hear, like, no idea about the car chase, because I read the car chase like 3 times to see if I missed the bullet holes, but no, you know, there was no indication of that. I don't know if I missed it again, but there's no indication of it, but she has bullet holes. Oh my gosh. Because her ex-boss sent his henchman after her to stop her, you know what I mean? Because she very cleverly recorded with his permission him admitting to everything, which I was like, girl, that is fantastic, you know what I mean? And okay, so now let's move on to the guy. And like the whole book is her trying to figure out how to stop this guy from doing it again, and that kind of thing, and this guy trying to stop her. So that was really good. That, like, the suspense of that was the only thing I enjoyed in this book, which, being a romance, is not good. Now let's move on to the guy that I totally remember his name. Ha 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 ha. So he gets to like 3 gold medals in the Olympics, a 4.0 in Stanford Law, and like a top FBI agent. Oh my God. And I was like, how do you know he's a top we're told this, right? And I was like, how do you know he's a top FBI agent? Like, he could just be their like pretty little mouthpiece because he's a famous Olympian. You know what I mean? And why 3 gold medals? Like, why 3? You know? Like, I was just like, that's too much. I don't believe this. This is not a believable person to me. Like, there's contemporary romance, like suspense romances that I read where one of the leads could see ghosts, and that's how they like solved murders, because of the ghosts. And that character was more believable than this FBI agent character. I'm gonna leave that there for you guys to think about. Okay? So I'm like, there's gotta be bodies. Is he the bad guy? Oh, no. We know who the bad guy is pretty early on. But I'm like, what the hell? And then like, and he's gorgeous, body of a Adonis. And that's all he is. Like, there's no personality. And when he interacts with her, it's like he doesn't know what communication skills are. Because this is the 21st century, bro. You gotta open your mouth and talk. Okay? The way he acts is like how I would expect a historical romance lead to act. Like someone from the Middle Ages to act. You know what I mean? Like Ian, the laird from The Secrets, was a medieval Scottish laird. Him being kind of not speaking a lot and kind of ordering her around made sense. A modern day guy doing that, no honey, that is a fucking red flag and you should run away. You know, like it was just, I was like, I don't think so. Where's his flaws? He doesn't have any. I'm like, everybody's got flaws. I don't believe he's a person until you show me some flaws. I don't believe she's a person until you show me some flaws. Like something, you know? Because you're putting this in contemporary times. I need to feel like they're real people. You know what I mean? When it's a historical romance, there's a little bit of more of a separation and dispense of belief. And you can be like, okay, I still do like flaws in the characters in the stories I read. I feel like that makes them more grounded. But I understand that's a personal preference. But let me tell you something. Does he sound real? Because he doesn't sound real to me. Like, at all. And he just orders her around. And she's like, oh, because he's worried about me. And I'm like, have you learned nothing? Like, you are a grown-ass woman. You are a grown-ass woman. I mean, if this guy talked to me, I don't care who he is. If someone talked to me like that, I would be like, excuse me? Do you want to rephrase that? I think you want to rephrase that. Yeah. I would not put up with that. I don't care if my life is in danger. No, you do not talk to me like that, buddy. You do not talk to me like that. And she's like, oh, and I was like, wow. You know? And wow. And like, there were moments where like, if we were shown, not told, that we could get why he's so closed off. Because I was like, it's for the reader to infer that's because his job is horrible, that he's seen messed up things. That's why he's closed off. No, it's because his ex-fiance cheated on him multiple times. Sucks. Did you guys hear the cat outside? Wow. Okay, so it sucks. It completely sucks. But like, I don't care. Because this Daniela character, I have no connection to her. We're not told that she cheated on him until like in the middle, not even towards the end of the book. We have no emotional connection to that scene. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing. There's not even an argument. Like, maybe before they meet up in the church again, if there's a scene where like the ex that cheated on him showed up to the apartment and they have an argument about her infidelity and how much that hurt, then I'd be like, oh man, that sucks. I think I would feel a little bit more connected to this guy who doesn't seem like a real person, has no personality traits other than being like, oh my God, so perfect. And she has zero to no personality traits except for being like hot and brave. But like, he calls her naive and I'm like, I don't actually see, like, we don't see her being naive, you know? And there is a little stickler for me that I don't like in contemporary romances. In contemporary romances, when it's a FM pairing, I'm not a fan of the girl being a virgin. You know, it feels a little unrealistic to me. Now, if you're in your mid-20s, you know, and, you know, you can have sex, like, whenever you want or never if you don't want to. That's not my business. That's you, boo. Absolutely. You know, do what feels right, what's comfortable for you. And if anybody tries to pressure you, bear spray, walk away. You know what I mean? But, like, it just didn't feel realistic that you know what I mean? She went to France for 2 years. She stayed in France for 2 years. It just didn't feel really real. She's young, she's gorgeous, she's unattached. And, like, he's her first. Like, that just doesn't... It just felt like a very old-fashioned way of writing romance. Because I do know the old-fashioned romances back, like, in the 70s and the 80s, publishing companies had two type of females that you could write a romance about. One, the chaste version, and the second would be, like an SA worker. Those were the only two. You know what I mean? Like, literally, publishing companies would not accept anything else. So that felt very aged, like a very aged form of writing a romance. So that also was like, oof. And I did not care. I enjoyed, like, my bloodlusty heart enjoyed what happened to the bad guy and all his compatriots. Love that. But, like, I didn't feel any connection with the main characters. I was like, oh, okay, they're in love, I guess. I don't know. Like, it just didn't, if this was a movie, I'd be like, they had no chemistry. None whatsoever. There was no chemistry. We didn't slowly come along for the ride as they fell in love. We didn't feel their heartache. I didn't feel connected to their heartaches, to your troubles, nothing. I just cared about like the ending to the attempted murders and like putting that SAS behind bars. That's the only reason I kept reading it, which is a shame. I really like The Secret, and I am going to try another one of this author's like historical, because maybe that's just her niche. You know what I mean? Because the main female and male that I totally remember their names, they were just cardboard cutouts. There was nothing to them. There was no growth. There was no depth. Nothing whatsoever. And like the story seemed to not really have a linear plan when it came to like just where the story was supposed to take place. Like had a feeling of all over the place. So did not like that. Okay. Whew, 1 star, did not like it. Okay, now the second book this week. Another 1 star, did not like it. I decided to do a cozy mystery because I have like 2 other books from this author that I picked up at my second hand bookstore, and I wanted to see if I even liked the writing style. Spoiler, I don't. So I read A Tea Shop Mystery, Shades of Earl Grey by Laura Childs. Okay, so yes, this book is the Keester book. So how old, like I get it that this isn't the first book in the series, used bookstore, you know, it happens. But how old is the main character Theodosia in this book supposed to be? Because for the context clues, she's supposed to be in her 30s, right? She talks like a 50-year-old. And I think this mystery takes place in the 90s. Considering like she had trouble with the fax machine, but DVDs and, you know, CD players were a thing, you know, but internet, like a lot of people still weren't completely comfortable with the internet, you know what I mean? So it made me feel like this took place in the 90s. I learned a lot about Charleston, Virginia, more than I wanted to be honest, more than I thought was possible to learn about that town, because there was like pages and like paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs of just history on the town. Cool. You research this town a lot. I see that. The mystery, not interesting. Not interesting. There's so many questions I'm left with, you know? So it starts off an engagement party. The lights go out, there's a big crash, and then there's a second crash. They run out to see what happens. And meanwhile, the fiance, his family is owed Southern money. So the engagement ring is on display at the Heritage Society, and this is kind of where the everything takes place. The ring is gone, or out of its case that was broken. The skylight was broken, and the fiance, huge piece of glass in his neck, bleeding out. Spoiler, he dies. So the ring goes missing. And that's kind of what everyone focuses on instead of the murder, which I thought was a little weird. And there's like a cat burglar around, and there's all these suspects and all these red herrings. Did I figure out who it was pretty early on? Yeah, I did. Was it because it had great context clues that lead me there? I was like, no. It wasn't great context clues at all. I think there was like 2 clues that the writer laid out that if you read it and was like surprised and then thought back, you'd be like, oh no, I totally get like the clues that were laid out carefully. No, there was just 2. The reason I knew it was this person in particular is because everybody else was so clearly a red herring that it actually gave me a headache. And I was like, okay. And I knew it was going to be tea themed. I'm not a fan of tea, but I knew that going in. I wasn't going to judge it for that. Learned a lot of history about tea. I don't know if that's accurate or not. I didn't feel, I didn't give a fuck to check. So who knows? But the people in the story, I'm assuming the main, like her best friend who also is in the tea shop, are in their 30s. I believe the cook is younger, maybe in her late 20s, and she's the hip one. Because at one point, she answers a question in the affirmative, cool. So I know she's young and hip. because these people are supposed to be in their 30s. They talk like 50-year-olds in the 90s. You know what I'm saying? Like, look, I am not a spring chicken. Like, I have friends that are in their 40s. I have friends that are not in their 40s. They do not talk like these people. Like, if this was set in the, like, early 1900s, I wouldn't think twice about this. If this was set in England, because I don't know a lot about England, I wouldn't think twice about Theodosia's vocabulary. I would think that she was just, you know, upper crust. I don't know if they were trying to go for, like, southern charm, you know? Like, kind of slow, descriptive drawl that 90s mystery shows, and I'm looking at you, Murder, She Wrote, I love you, but you did this too, tended to portray southern characters in, that they would take like 4 sentences to say one thing, you know, in a very descriptive, poetic kind of way. And it's like, yeah, people don't really talk like that. Like, people don't really talk like that. And I'm just like, even in the midst of catching the culprit, she still talked like a 50-year-old. And I was like, okay, instead of reading this book thinking Theodosia's 30, let me think that she's 50, maybe even 60. And then I thought she was charming. But when I thought she was a young person, she annoyed the piss out of me. And it was like, if someone, you're sitting at a table, and instead of someone saying, hey, can you pass the sugar? They'd be like, oh, pardon me, madam, can perchance pass the sucrose? You know what I mean? It kind of had that feel to it. Like, I was like, it reminded me of that meme with, like, Stephen Buscemi, and he's, like, dressed up. I see if I can find it. Dressed up as a teen. He's like, hello, my fellow teens. That's what it felt like. It felt like Theodosia and everyone around her was secretly in their 60s, in their 50s or 60s, pretending to be 30-year-olds. And, like, her boyfriend, like, he's sleazy, isn't he? The description made him sound sleazy. He acted sleazy. Not really, but there was just, like, I couldn't help but be like, is he involved? Like, why is he like this? And then they never, like, the red herrings, they never explain away those red herrings. And at one point, one of the really good suspects were in their POV. And the moment I realized we're in their POV, I was like, oh, obviously he's not it. Because why in the middle of your fucking mystery would you put me in the guy that did it point of view? So he has to be innocent. That was my way of thinking, and I was correct. Because what author is going to shoot themselves in the foot and destroy their own suspense like that? But also, you lessen the suspense because it was like, oh, knock that guy off the list, so it must be this person. Which it was, because the other two were so freaking obvious. And then we were random people's POVs. The aunt of the fiance, there's an aunt in this who is friends with Theodosia, who has a clothing shop in this cute little square that sounded adorable. Her niece was going to marry the dead guy, right? We're in her POV for no freaking reason other to be like, well, Theodosia's sure certainly going to find that ring. And I was like, the dude's dead. You've been crying about the dude being dead for how long? The dude's dead. And like, it's more about the ring than the dead guy. Because like, oh, it must have been an accident. Really? And then they find out who did it. No surprise. And I thought back to all the clues. There were 2 and they weren't that well established. So I was like, that's not so very good. They still don't explain why the fiance was in that room at that time. Because no one was in that room. Everybody was in the separate room, like having champagne and stuff like that. That's where people were waiting for him. And it did not establish that you have to get through that room to go to that room. To go to all right. The room where he died was the garden room, okay? They did not establish that you have to walk through the garden room to get to the party room. Nothing established that. So why the hell was he there? Why the hell was he stationary enough for the glass ceiling to crack, crumble, and stab him in the neck? And this guy, he was supposed to be like a Navy SEAL or something like that. I'm sorry. Like, are you kidding me? You're telling me that like an active duty Navy SEAL here's a huge crack and he's not gonna flinch, not gonna look up, not gonna move? Like, there was nothing, it did not explain anything. I was just like, wow, this is a shitty mystery. And that's all you're supposed to be. And I was like, this is not good. And I was like, crap, I got 2 more of this person's books. Oh. So this was a week Oh yes, Keester. Why I called it Keester. Remember I mentioned the cook that must have been young and hip because they answered to affirmative to cool. Well, at one point, they're talking about this piece of furniture for fucking ever. They're talking about this separate product line that Theodosia's doing, like a bath bomb, but it's in tea bags. It's called Tea, the letter T bag. And like all I could think of, I think it's the Call of Duty guys, or is it Halo, where you can tea bag the guy you just killed. That's all I could picture. Master Chief teabagging a dead guy. That's all I could picture every time they talked about it. And they talked about it a lot. I was like, is this product line important to the mystery? Is it like somehow tied in? Is that how they figure it out? No. Is this piece of furniture like a clue or helps them get to a clue? No. Just a very intense description of this antique piece that the hip, cool cook was like, oh good, it's thin. I was worried I was gonna knock my keister into it. Keister. Who says that? What freaking 20 to 30-year-old says that? Even in the 90s, who says that? Like, no. Like, okay, the shop is open, people are around. I've been in customer service. I would probably say my bottom. You know what I mean? Oh good, I was worried I was gonna knock my bottom into it. Keister? I feel like that, like who says that? Who says keister? I mean, it's a great word. I'm not disputing that. But like in like common vocabulary, no. Come on now. Like what the hell? Like, no. They might as well have just said like gluteus maximus. Because that's how much it took me out of the moment. I was like, they're all fucking 90. Like I was just like, what the hell is this? And the random POVs and like the just intense descriptions of shit that did not matter to the actual story. The only thing I liked about this was the dog, whose name is Earl Grey. I expected a lot of puns. I'm not a fan of puns. But like, you know, I've read plenty of stories where puns were prevalent and I still enjoyed myself. So many puns. I only liked the dog. And the fact that the dog wasn't a trained attack dog, but still knew like attack commands. I was like, that's not how that works. Dogs aren't just like naturally like attack, rawr, and then like, oh, hold them there, boy, and they just like hold on to the neck and not bite down. That's not how dogs work. That's not how dog ownership works, and that's not how dog training works. Like that's a lot of work to put into dogs like that so they listen to your command and not hurt somebody that, you know, they're not supposed to hurt. You know what I mean? So I was just like, no. And then like Theodosia's so smart because when she climbed out the window after the bad guy that no one is surprised about, she grabbed super glue and like super glued her hair onto the cement when the dog that has no training whatsoever held her by the throat with his teeth and not bite down because he's so well trained, except he's not. And ha ha ha. And I was like, oh, how are they ever gonna get? And then the cops were like, I don't know what you did to hold her down, but we gotta cut her hair. Yuck. And I was like, that's not how any of that works. Because, like, I could think maybe Gorilla Glue is that fast acting, but Gorilla Glue did not exist in the 90s. And also, this was glue her best friend that I think was gay coded. I don't know what was going on with him. Or is he supposed to be, like, her real romantically? I don't know what the hell's going on with him. He was entertaining. A little bitchy, but entertaining. And that, like, oh, he's been a bitch to everybody. I like him kind of way. This was his stamp glue. Like, he collects stamps, and this was his stamp glue. So, like, I don't think it would be fast acting so intense that hair sticks to cement, and, like, the only way to get her out of it is to cut her hair off. Like, I'm just like, I don't think that's how that works at all, because you would destroy so many stamps with such a powerful acting glue. I could be wrong. I'm not a stamp collector. If I'm wrong about that, my apologies. But it's okay because everything else in this book was ridiculous and sucked. I have another tea-shop mystery. I'm grabbing the wrong book. I have another tea-shop mystery book from this person. I'm not going to read it. I'm going to put in the pile to donate. There's another one, a completely different people, completely different everything. So I think I'll give that one a try. Maybe in a month or so. You know, see if I like that one. Because you never know, right? I will keep trying with Julie Garwood. It's upside down. Who cares? Because The Secret was so good. I did not like this. At all. So, that was my week. I don't want to, but it's time for me to get back to the real world. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Bye.